Power's back on. Power's back on.
They're on.
Wow. Okay. Yep, everything, it came back on. So we want to have a work session on it just to present the actual award of the bid or the grant, and we have to formally accept it, but we also need to work on, and then I'll come back
Yep.
as a recommendation, you know, the delivery of them as well. So
Sure.
Mike Hoffmeister, if you
Yeah, Mike Hoffmeister, Residential Services Director. As Supervisor Stumbo mentioned, we are going to be awarded 3 grants. One with the Recycling Partnership. I don't think is it? Okay. One with the Recycling Partnership for $243,200. One from Eagle for $580,000. $580,630. And Washtenaw County for $40,000, totaling $863,830. And so those were the 3 grants that Supervisor Stumbo mentioned previously being written and supported by Bill Ernott and his firm. And this does allow us to get recycling, 95-gallon recycling carts for all of our residents. And a lot of what will take place between now and when we do roll out the carts are an education and marketing plan for all of our residents. The Recycling Partnership does help us with that substantially. So they help put together the marketing materials. They help develop a marketing plan and an education plan, a frequently asked questions document. They help us with mailing those items to our residents. And then they help us create logistics between our cart manufacturer, the installation of carts, the delivery of the carts, and then the rollout of the carts to our residents. So there will be 3 grant agreements that will come back to the Board of Trustees after Attorney Winter's review. Each of them do have their own agreement that we must accept formally. Additionally, the purchase of the carts will come as a board agenda item as well. And all 3 of these grants are reimbursement grants. So we'll work very closely with the accounting office, and there will be lots of staff deliberation ahead of coming back to the Board of Trustees so that we have a full plan before we do so. So we are looking at rolling out cart delivery in May or June. The original plan was April, but we did not receive the Eagle or Washtenaw County agreements until the last couple weeks. We just were not prepared to bring them to the board yet. So we are at a work session now, obviously discussing, and we're very excited to do this. The purpose of this, if you remember, WARMA and the Recycling Partnership. For those that don't know, Ron Akers here with the city of Ypsilanti, he's also going to be talking about an item later in the agenda. But Ron is a partner of ours with WARMA, and we did a feet on the streets recycling audit last year. And then this is really piggybacking onto that progress we've made with streamlining our recycling, making sure we don't put plastic bags in our recycling, we don't put our recycling in bags, and we're going to take advantage of a lot of that and provide more resources for our residents to recycle.
Are there questions or comments? Can you hear me?
Mm-mm.
They're on, but there's no back. Are there any questions or comments on this?
I have a couple. Just question. Mike, on the 2 questions, when we sent out the larger garbage cans a year and a half ago, we got a lot of calls right away from folks who couldn't maneuver them because of age or abilities. So are you guys talking about that in your meeting?
Yes, yes.
And
one of the items in the Recycling Partnership Agreement is that there will, and similar to what we do with the trash, the larger trash can, they will have the ability to opt out of the larger one to get a smaller one.
At no second delivery cost or anything, or? 'Cause they were charging a second delivery cost.
Yes. Will there be, will the flyers and everything go out before the
Yes.
containers?
Yes. So there will be a timeline of marketing pieces that will go out ahead of time.
Okay.
When we have a delivery date or a delivery schedule prepared, where we can say Monday A will be delivered this day and Monday B will be delivered this day, we'll have a better idea what we can put on those marketing pieces so we can tell our residents when that cart will be arriving.
And also, will the information explain that if they don't want to take the new carts, they can keep the old ones? And
So that's a great question. So the way that we have discussed with the and this is one of those details that we're still figuring out. If a resident is currently renting a recycle cart from Waste Management for the $4.16 a month, that agreement will cease as soon as they get a new cart as part of this process. And then we'll have to figure out a way for Waste Management to collect that previously rented cart and utilize the new cart provided by the grants. We're going to try and find an easier way where maybe a cart doesn't go to that home, but the way that it's been explained to us is that it's easier for them to deliver a cart to every home and then return the rented cart and seize that rental from the resident's perspective. Because the resident pays that directly to Waste Management for the rental of a larger cart.
right,
As it stands now.
okay. So then they won't have to pay that.
Correct.
But if they didn't want that, then,
So if they didn't want the larger one, we'll have a process set for them to reach out to either us or Waste Management to get the larger cart swapped for a smaller one.
okay, but then they still wouldn't have to pay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha.
You're welcome.
Mike, my only other question, and I was trying to listen to both ends here. With a larger cart, 90-plus gallons, if we went to a once-a-month pickup, would that reduce our cost rather than having to come out twice a month? Could we reduce our cost by only a once-a-month pickup since you have such a bigger cart?
It could. That's a question we can ask our Waste Management team to see if that would help with that question.
I don't have anything else.
Sorry about that. Did I get it to work?
Wait, yep, mine's on. Yours on?
I just push every button and turn up everything.
It's on now.
I'm just thinking out loud, like, if we're not gonna know, like, who wants a larger one and wants a smaller one, so we do that. So the idea that we do, like, once a month versus somebody chooses a large one, like, not for, somebody who wants a large one. So I think we'll have to pay attention to that.
Well, and only is, the red bins are what?
18 gallons.
18 gallons. So even if they went to the smaller 64, we could look at a once-a-month pickup. I'm not sure how. Yeah.
What I notice is, like, it seems like people recycle, there's a abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And then people who don't. So probably what I notice is that obviously the abundance is actually welcome to do that. If they're not, it looks like zero.
And I'm guessing we'll work with the Neighborhood Watch with Robin to try to get a feel and do it section by section. Neighborhood, we can't do it all at once. There's no way. But we just wanted to bring it here, though, so the board knows that we were awarded the grant. We have to formally accept it, I believe, Michael. But we don't want to do that without having some sort of plan,
Yep.
to roll it out. And how long will it take to get the cards?
So I have a number of quotes prepared for the carts, and the current the current manufacturing turnaround time is 8 weeks. So that's not too bad. We figured it would be worse, but 8 weeks isn't bad. So if we were to bring the cart purchase back to the Board of Trustees in April, that would put us in June.
And this, how's the city? Do you guys have I mean, it's a little smaller area than what we have, but are you doing the same thing in the city? Getting cards? Yeah. I was going to say go to the mic, but the mics don't work, but if you, and just give your,
I'm right here in the posters running for the city, so we actually applied for the exact same 3 grants that the township has applied for, we were awarded as well. We're gonna we have partnerships through several purchasing groups, and so we're working right now with the Cascade Engineering to come up with a code to be able to do that. They're gonna do assembly and delivery for us. So it's gonna take about the same time period, 2 weeks for production. And, so our rollout is going to be very, very similar. Our time frame is a little bit longer due to internal staffing capacity, so we're going to spend a little bit more time. We might be making some changes to our second program. So we're looking at potentially fall.
we might be too, in order to get the community engagement around it through Neighborhood Watch and the neighborhood groups, because it's, and how many, you guys have how many 5,000 single-family homes?
So our current recycling program, we do, we collect from parcels which have 1 unit up to 40 houses. So there's about, it was about 4,000.
Yeah.
We're also looking at adding some additional.
It could be a same process, you know, that you're going to go through, making sure residents are aware, and like Debbie said, what do they want, or is it once a month? We have a contract for every other week. We do it once every 2 weeks. Do you pick up every 2 weeks, or? Yours is weekly, so. Well, the good news is we were able to receive the grant, and it'll reduce the cost on the homeowners, which is what we wanted to. It's exciting, really, but we need to make sure the logistics are worked out. Thank you, Michael. The next item is DTE. Michael?
Yes, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is just a brief update discussion regards Huron Street and DTE that will also be coming back to the board. But I wanted to provide some information. Another project we're partnering with the city on. As you know, you guys approved the township to go to phase 1, what we're calling phase 1 of a trail improvement along Huron Street that will take the trail from North Huron River Drive to James L. Hart on the west side of Huron Street. And then the second phase will be the partnership with the city of Ypsilanti, MDOT, Washtenaw County, and of course Ypsilanti Township to create that multi-use path from James L. Hart over the bridge into the city of Ypsilanti. So in addition to that, some other items that will be coming back to the board include 2 agreements for streetlights. This is, the city is also doing streetlights, is my understanding, so we want to be uniform across the entire project. And in my memo, you'll notice that 29 streetlights will be for our phase 1. They are staggered on both sides of the road, basically going from North Huron River Drive to James L. Hart. And then the township side of the street light project with DTE for James L. Hart to I-94 is 21 street lights staggered on both sides. So we felt it was important to be uniform with the city, but also be uniform from I-95 all the way down to North Huron River Drive. In addition to the memo, you'll see the budget letters from DTE, which do supply the quotes. DTE does do all the work as part of this project. And the goal for our phase 1, which is that first phase we recently approved, is to work with DTE in coordination with All-Star and OHM to get those DTE lights in while we're constructing the trail in phase 1. So it makes perfect sense that we do this. And these lights do have formal agreements with DTE that we will bring back to the Board of Trustees when the time is right. But similar to the recycling project, we wanted to bring this for discussion for you all if you had any questions.
Questions?
Mm-hmm.
If we pre-pick it, that's an option, how much it doesn't cost. It looks nice, and I think that's a corridor we want to look at.
That's a great idea.
We're gonna do it, let's do it.
That's a great idea. It could provide marketing opportunities from some of the events we might be having or other items. So, are you putting banner bars on yours?
I don't believe so. There's a couple different ways you can handle it. So DTE has stock light poles. I believe some of them have the banner fixtures on them. So they have like a screw in or a pop-in banner arm. There's also aftermarket products. They have tension rods that you can utilize. Actually, a lot of the EMU signs that you see going into the city, those are all done that way. They have tension mounts.
Great.
There's ways to do it after the fact too. We can certainly talk about it.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Other question, they're coming from the poles are, the same pole that they're using on US 12.
Yep.
And if someone hits them, it's a breakaway pole, my machine is much easier, cost effective to replace that. It's, the same, I was thinking of Ross tonight, on Grove, same things are on Grove. So I'm trying to figure out the illumination, because Stan and Heather and I often meet with DTE, and of course, nothing gets done. But their goal is to have as many lights as possible, and we often reduce the number. And it doesn't have to be a highway, it just has to be well lit, and we need to determine that number. And we will meet with them and they show it to us and try to figure out, because I think US 12 is very well, well, I know it's very well there. And I don't know what the distance, I don't know what the distance is in the city, but it'd be probably the same.
But we're doing 250 feet between lights.
It should never be the same.
I don't know specifically what the light pole distance is in the city. I do know that when DT put it in, they put together a total electric plan to
Yeah.
show
Mhm.
what the illumination levels are. And we use some of the standards in our zoning ordinance as far as what minimum they use. Is at the sidewalk. So that's how we evaluated it.
Yeah. It's usually 300 feet, so they go to 250. So I have, just double check it out.
On US 12, as bright as it is, you reduce the lights there, it's still that bright.
But it's good, I think it's an addition to the neighborhoods, and a lot of residents who travel up and down there in the evening have said over the years, when John Allen was here, that they wanted lighting, and this is opportunity to do it. Since we're doing the great project for the city, and MDOT, and thanks to, again, to Representative Peterson, has been in the making for 20 years, so people will be able to safely cross. They're changing the road too. Stan, there's going to be a light, they actually do a turn right, you come to a stoplight, and you turn right. So they're going to change the way the current intersections work. They're working now on in the city. I don't know where they do that. They're going to close that.
So
Go ahead.
the main, the main improvements to the freeway, they're going to be changing some of the entrance and exit ramps onto the freeway from Front Street. Right now, the city of Ypsilanti, YC Way is doing a very large water main and service line replacement project throughout all the areas that MDOT's going to be working on. Moving north of the city, MDOT's going to be doing concrete patching and asphalt resurfacing. They're on
much safer for non-motorized people to actually walk over or bike over or any other way, that they use to get over. And it's a connection to the Kroger, which is a grocery store, so that's another great asset. And I hope the library, and there's a lot of good reasons that this is happening, so I'm excited to just, check the numbers of lights to make sure it's not too many lights. All right, and now I'll come back to the board as well.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
are those the black hanging lights with the globe
Yes.
on them? That's what I thought. I thought I'd
Yes.
seen some out already.
they're called Cobra.
Cobra,
Yeah.
they look nice. Thank you.
Yeah, well, acorn lights look nice, but they don't illuminate over a bordering highway, so that's why we have, and you have that road and that, like the decorative lights. I did go down to Canton to look at theirs, and they have an acorn with one arm going over only to the pathway, not for the roadway. So this will light up the pathway and the roadway. Good question, and part of this also is the agreement that we will mow, and then the city, which is another agenda item, but since we're talking about it.
Sure.
You want to talk about that agenda
Sure.
item, if it's okay with the board?
Sure. So as part of the partnership we've had with the city, MDOT has asked us to put together a maintenance agreement, an intergovernmental maintenance agreement as it relates to that project, specifically snow plowing the trail and mowing the grassy areas around I-94. In this agreement, the city will take on the plowing. And Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but they already have an agreement with the state to plow the road. This particular agreement is to have the city plow the trail into the township's property or into the township's jurisdiction. This agreement also explains where and how often the township staff, RSD and Parks and Grounds staff will mow the MDOT intersection, as you see in the map there. I will caveat the map in the fact that we don't mow all of that green space. That green space just shows the coverage of the permit that we supply to MDOT. There are native wildflowers in that area that we are unable to mow or touch. So what our staff primarily does is mows one swath or one pass along those areas. And then some of the other areas to the north, we do mow the entire island where westbound traffic turns left into the township. So this agreement has been reviewed both by city staff and city attorney and our Mr. Winters, and has preliminarily been asked to be brought to the township board tonight. That's required by MDOT, right? They require us.
There is,
We don't have one in Ypsilanti Township. The city, because it's a joint project, is going to do the snow removal on the pedestrian path, and the township is going to continue to mow, which we've been doing this, we don't want to talk as well. So this solidifies it, and it's a required amendment. So
Is there a way to have a space that we want to vote with the market next year? Are we allowed to even explore the idea that you could create something that would be, or?
well, they did. They created the wildflower part.
we're gonna have to authorize
They're
it.
talking about maybe some ground cover or something like that.
Okay, I got you.
That's gonna have with wires to use.
It's going to be dug up. I'm thinking about what we know that would have to be,
Yeah, the state of Michigan has said that you can only do, I think it's 8 or 10 swipe on the side of the road. You can't mow the whole area anyway. So that's like a state requirement.
That's correct. We have a separate map that was provided by MDOT that has hashed out areas where we cannot mow.
how are we allowed to explore
I think it's, I think it's a question we can ask. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to jump to that there. I mean, there are ways to plan things, but we gotta be require us orders. Now, well, that looks like a lot of area where we really don't do one swipe. That's all we're allowed to do.
Mhm.
And even on county roads, that's all we do is one swipe. Because the state of Michigan and the environment, if we had to do zero, that would be better, but I don't think we could.
Site distance.
There we go.
There are things that only carry one box on, but there are things that only go. They just don't go very high. I don't know what we're allowed to. The state is, they're very good dictators on this. They're controlling on ass. Well, the mowing, I'll tell you, there's a lot of mowing is US 12. That's gonna be like, ground cover something they've been trying to do for more than 20 years. But for some reason, Michigan doesn't when we do it in their road right away. So then you don't, once you get it started, it's not, there's some maintenance to it. Nothing like mowing every time you're ready. The litter or something. It's crazy, but it was good. I supported it. I know they're very controlled. Okay, any other questions on the agreement? I've seen autonomous mowing.
That'd be fun.
And, I've seen videos of that. I don't know I think it's battery operated. That's something I was just happy to see this year. People are doing their programming lower and
Would I'm sorry. Would an electrical lawnmower be of any use? I mean, because with the lithium batteries, it wouldn't use any gas or greenhouse?
Yeah, we were actually just at a trade show and saw a zero-turn mower that's all electric. That should last an entire 8-hour workday, depending on how thick of the grass you're going through.
Yeah.
So we've explored that, a little higher upfront costs, but in the long run, it's cheaper to operate over time.
Yeah.
So it's becoming a thing, you know?
I have a battery at home.
Really?
Used to an electric.
Right.
It works well, too. But do you use bat wings in the?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so did you see any bat wings with lithium?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I haven't seen one.
It's coming. That's a good suggestion. Why did you? No. All right.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Ron.
I forgot to mention that, Fort Gerald Road, is that gonna be here, she's with her daughter, and her taxes were looking, but she'll be here at the work session, or the board meeting, and Jimmy Wilson, trustee Wilson also said, and contacted us, that he will not be at the work session, so they should have said that, the record. Now it's time to go over the agenda. We have the consent agenda and the minutes of the meeting. Any questions or comments? I did use, I sent to Heather earlier some additions. Does anyone have any additions, corrections, or? Treasurer's report? All right, and attorney's report, general legal update.
I can do it at the regular meeting.
Do you want to take, and first reading of the resolution to amend the township fireworks ordinance? So, this is for Juneteenth, and you can
No, I think the resolution and the ordinance is pretty straightforward as to why this is being recommended. And again, the Juneteenth fireworks would be legal from after 11 a.m. until I think it's 1 p.m. on June 20th. So that's consistent with how New Year's Eve is currently being handled. So I think Brenda wanted to at least get this on the agenda for discussion and move it forward. And so this is already mid-March, so it can at least be in play. It may seem far away, but June will be here pretty soon. So, so today is mid-March almost. So it is mid-March. So it takes 2 readings. So this is the first reading.
Any comments or questions?
So this will,
Yeah, Fire Chief Eric Copeland. I do have a question. Is it a designated day, like a Friday or Saturday for Juneteenth? It's the 13th, is it? Or the 19th? Okay.
June 19th is
So that can fall on
any day.
any day.
It's like New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve.
Okay. There's a question in my mind was, I thought it was on a Friday or a Saturday, but no. Okay.
That's not my,
I
I'm
did.
saying it's June 19th,
Yep.
which is rotating.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's, I think this year maybe on a Sunday, I think. So it goes with the calendar every year, different day.
Last year was on Saturday,
Yes.
so this year we have Sunday.
So then fireworks will be legal for 12 midnight Sunday through all that day,
It starts June 19th at 11 a.m.
June 19th.
and it's 1 a.m. June 20th.
Okay.
Or it's like, it wasn't on one day, it's not a set day, like the other holidays were, December 31st, and New Year's Eve until 1 a.m. on January 1st. So we treated it like the New Year's Eve holiday.
Are these are not working, so I don't have to worry. Good evening, Karen Wallen, HR manager, and I'm back, as I said I would be, in December, when we actually brought a memo asking to name John Hines as the interim Recreation Services Manager upon Angie Burgess's retirement. So Mr. Hines has been serving as the Recreation Services Manager, and we have reviewed the Recreation Department services that we offer and actually pulled the Recreation Director's position that has been vacant for a number of years since Art Serafinsky left, and wanted to see what our needs were, actually. Angie Burgess's position was directed more toward just the community center and didn't include a lot of the work with parks and grounds and things. So Director Hoffmeister and Supervisor Sturmo and myself met and have went over some things, and you'll see that there was also a recommendation from Residential Services Director Hoffmeister in the packet as well. But we've made some updates to what was the Recreation Services Manager's job description, adding back in some of those recreation duties that we feel is necessary, and then asking for John Hines to actually be named as the director. He does have the qualifications that we would be looking for as far as degree and schooling and things. So, we always feel it's nice to promote from within if we can do that. So that is the recommendation being brought forth tonight. It'll be a combination of Residential Services Director Hoffmeister and Brenda, depending. I don't.
I guess my question would be, why change the title of the director report? You have one director reporting to another director.
Part of the reason is when Hoffmeister is off, this position will now help fulfill this.
Yeah. The job description actually does read that he will report directly to the Residential Services Director or designee, which, if Mike Hoffmeister is not here, would be Brenda. And I think we thought that because he will be helping out more with some of the parks issues, and that those fall under Mike. So, I mean, if the board wishes for it to be directly to Supervisor Stumbo, we could change that to read Supervisor Stumbo or designee, and then she can make that designee to Mike if needed.
The idea is when Mike is off, and he can help fill in, and vice versa. The only, just like the organizational chart, everyone reports to the supervisor, except for accounting, of course, the treasurer's office and the clerk's office. They report to the elected. But every other department will ultimately have an accounting board. And this job description specifically will be, I don't know, seeing that issue with the director's office.
Just the report. The golf course, we have two directors. And we kind of work out there for summer and create a problem. I get that one's off, and we have to do, I get that.
More of an assistant.
I get that, but it just seems like they, I don't know, maybe it's just semantics. You see, your director report directly to the supervisor, and if another director's off, you can pick up those duties, and that's why one director will report to the second.
Well, the golf director reports to him.
Well,
Maybe
yeah.
it's under recreation.
Not to give Mike too much, or a big head, but he actually does have several departments under him, so he's like a multi-director. Does that make sense? Yeah. So he's not like other directors where they only have like one particular department underneath them. He has several.
But I do understand what, Treasurer Oliver is saying. Partly because my experience with park commission, you can't get bogged down in people, but it's been a while since we had this kind of situation, and it was often there was a tenuous situation there, but like things just didn't fit. So I'm less worried about the director, or more worried about like, how it all fits together, putting something back that hasn't completely been in place for a while, and it may work for, personalities that are in place, but I think clarity about the flow of things would be important. That makes sense. I'm not necessarily concerned about anybody who's in a position right now. I know HR practices aren't about like people, it's about, they are about
Right.
people, but it's about the flow of
Right.
the positions, and so I would be thinking about getting more clarity about how that's working, so I do hear what you're saying.
So if I understand correctly, there's, Mike Hoffmeister is director of, and then there are other directors of,
Residential services.
and to him.
Right.
So they're directors of their own departments, but ultimately they report to the residential director. So these other directors they're directors of their departments, but they're not the residential director.
That's fine.
Right. So, yeah, I'm trying to see, to me, there's clarity. If you have a director and then you're reporting to the residential director, to me, that differentiates, the director title, because the director of a department is reporting to the residential director, which is over the county. That's the way I see it anyway.
So you're okay with the design?
Yes.
Maybe it's the non-variance, I'm not sure. That's how it was before too. Art Serapinski, when he was director, reported to Jeff Allen, who was the residential services director.
Yes.
Now, they can't change it, but Kirk is a director of golf. He reports to him directly, the residential services director, and it includes recreation, which, like you said, is a big.
Correct.
I think I'm going back farther than what you gave an example of when I
Oh, yeah.
was
Right.
stressing that there was some
Yeah, there's
tension amongst the clarity of where people were, and it just is. So when you haven't had that in place for a while, so I don't know. I think the idea is that Mr. Office, this person is like what differentiates between this position, if lights out, and anybody else who's how does that, how we decide that it would be this director?
Well,
Because there's a bunch of directors that
well, they had talked about previously about the residential services director assistant, I don't know what that, but we had, and this is kind of like that person.
Okay.
So they can do purchase orders, they can do, it's really a lot of the budget stuff too, they can do budgets and help Mike with that. Then there's the maintenance department that Mike oversees. So if the rec director gets concerned about a part, then they too can give it the information to Mike, so we can make sure the parks are on fire now, which is, I mean, not literally, but, I mean, participation, it is like amazing. That's one thing that did, you know, you try to look for the good things out of COVID. People did get out and start using our parks more. And since John has been in the interim position, and he has two new employees, so this is a whole new group. All that, I mean, John is a senior person, and he's a little over a year and a half. And he's a senior person.
Yeah, he hired in the end of 19, so.
So can somebody explain to us, or just at least talk us through the idea of not choosing the language of assistant? That language, like, you weren't in that conversation, I don't know, like, what meeting is why we wrote down just a straight director of recreation versus, like, the assistant.
From my perspective, what we talked about was recreation is so important, and we want everything to flow through, so our residents are not confused on who's overseeing recreation. So that's why that I thought recreation was good. The other, Angie, before she retired, was facilities director. And that was a much limited duties for facilities, overseeing. They didn't do as much in this position, which is what Art used to do. He was the director. He was the director of golf. So if you want to contact someone, you have an issue as a resident, you can contact the director of golf. They know who to contact because people still don't know what residential services director is. But I think, to me, it's a clear path for residents. But if it, I mean, we can always do it and change it. We can, you know, we can change. When my graduate retired, we changed Melinda's position. And so, I mean, there's always change that can occur.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So to get understanding, I think I understand Mike's position and the gentleman, John Hines. So he has a lot of other directors, maintenance and all that. He is the top person to go to if there's a situation. From there, if Mike's not there, does it come back to you? If they're, that's what I thought. So basically, it's going to come back to Brenda. If he's not there, he's gone for 2 months. All those other directors have an issue, it's going to come to you.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That is absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So where does the other person come in, the John Hines? So if he was an assistant, then wouldn't they go to him before coming to you?
He's not an assistant.
Okay.
He does recreation, director out there. An assistant would literally, like if you have a problem at the park and they call the RS, Residential Services Office and say, you know, the park is in horrible condition or there's a broken part, and Mike deploys people to make sure we address that.
Mhm.
And he also, we had a community center CRC in West Willow. The driveway was washed out and deep, and it was like we reported it to Mike, and Mike got a team together to go and repair that. So he does more than recreation. And when the parks are closed, you know, they work on other things too. So, no, the recreation continues to go all year round. Because
Madam,
there's events and programs all year round. I don't know. Mike, you can jump in any time. Well, am I explaining this correctly?
No, you are, but originally, when Treasurer Outreach asked the question about why, that's how we had the conversation about if Mike's out. John, if they all report to, understand Mike was that together, but the conversation was about the board director, which I, misunderstanding. I heard that if one of the reasons why we use director
He does a lot of the purchasing and the budgeting stuff, that's what, administrative things that John does, or that Mike does while he's there. But this position has him going to Parks Commission meetings, you know, and dealing with them on that. Right now, when Mike's on, with an issue, they still come. People come to me, you know, it's just, that's what happens, they always come to me. But as far as putting in purchasing orders or budget things that we need to do, agenda items, Mike could do that interesting from Heinz.
Madam Chair. So, at one time, and I guess this is what John did, he was assistant, is that correct? Was he assistant?
He was recreation coordinator.
He was a recreation coordinator. Is
Yes.
that what Angie did?
Angie was facilities manager, she did not want to be director.
Yeah.
Okay.
Angie was the recreation services manager that, all she did was
That's
the community center.
Community center.
Yeah, she did not get involved with the parks, which we talked about, that this would be an important part that John would be involved in.
Okay.
That, you know, and Mike is also involved in that, so that's kind of the thing that if Mike was gone, John can step up and take care of. There might be things in Mike's job description that John wouldn't know about, and then at that point, it would go to Brenda.
And so at this point with John, I guess you're going to put him in that title because he's going to have more duties. Is that correct?
Yes,
Very clear. Very clear to me. Thank you.
yes.
Because recreation
You kind of,
is becoming so
right.
important.
So
and
that's
always
why you
been.
call him director, because he's going to have more weight on him, more positions reporting to Mike. So it's very clear to me. Thank you.
And it- similar to the golf, right, where we have the director title.
Yeah, he would now have, because like Brenda said, we just hired 2 recreation coordinators, so those individuals would fall directly under him, as well as the building attendants and program directors or that they have over there is for dance, everything. I mean, I don't know much more other than dance, but
And he brought the YMCA,
yes.
that position brought the YMCA and all the programs that we were doing with them. You know, there's just recreation, and we've always felt this way, and the reason I know people are sort of, it's very important to the community. It's so nice to start getting enough staff to help. We just have a staff at Park, and Robin was hired, she helps out for the summer, and she helps with the planning of the events, and like,
One more question.
it's good. But if it doesn't work, you can always back and change time.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask one more question. Was this posted, or is it something, a position that was, you know, I don't know if there's other people within departments that tried to bid on the job, or was this just, he was appointed?
And when he was,
Yeah, he was interim
He was
appointed.
interim. Okay.
If we would post the position, I mean, he has the degree
Qualification.
and all of that would be
You
required
did
for the
say that.
program.
Thank you.
And we're not aware of anybody else in the township that has the degree and the experience that he has. I guess, other than Mike.
No, I'm good.
So, I just have one curiosity question. Was John Hines the person that was your, like deputy? Okay, all right.
so, what happened is with COVID, they didn't want to lay anyone off, so we moved, because there wasn't a program. And senior coordinator retired, and we moved John over here, Angie was still working and stuff, but we weren't having programs. So instead of laying anyone off, I just moved him over to deputy, and it worked out beautiful. He really learned the budget process through that. And he did a great job with constituent services, and
Coordinator?
Coordinator.
Coordinator?
That does all the, basketball, baseball, soccer. So that position can go. And then the new senior coordinator that took Debbie's Ivy's place is in place. It's going smooth so far. And the improvements of paintings that we've done over there, we're gonna do the west room to just get the, some
So are we looking at making changes and bringing something back at a later date, or are we, what are we looking at doing?
I don't think it's a good idea to wait, but maybe John and Mike can talk, and you can talk about like what that's gonna look like. Changing that connection from Ypsilanti, and how that communication moves through what happens. John's not seeing anything to the needs of it, pretty much working with. Mike will still be going, and I'm not saying he has to, but if it's just a complete switch, like this is being on, that's gotta be. Chuck Allen used to go and the recreation first was there two in there? Very rarely. Usually it was the recreation director. Previously, that person was no longer there. Angie and Mike which was on. And then, well, there's no one. But also, it was Cooper's job. What was that?
He did parks. He was strictly parks. Yeah.
So I'm telling you, there are differences if you want to make sure. It'll solve a lot of problems. I agree. Which brings us to the next item, the CBDG application for the grant to update the parks that was on park master.
That's correct. So in front of you, you see a CDBG application for 2022. We had previously, is this working? No. We had previously come to you in 2021 to apply for funds to improve sidewalk infill on Washtenaw Avenue. If you remember that, that was last year. Since then, we and Washtenaw County and the Reimagine Washtenaw Group have heard from MDOT that they are going to be investing substantial dollars into Washtenaw Avenue, including sidewalk infill and some of the things that we were talking about with CDBG. And so our plan with CDBG funds presented a number of challenges and complications, and the fact that MDOT is going to come in and do improvements in the next couple of years has allowed us to rethink our priorities when it comes to CBDG funds. And inside of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, one of the prioritized projects is improving Apple Ridge Park, and specifically the playground, the play surface, and the walking trail that surrounds the perimeter of that park. And so the application here in front of you does show that proposal, as well as a letter agreement that will come back to the Board of Trustees from Spicer Group for design engineering, bidding, and construction engineering. So this will be a much improved project at Apple Ridge. And then this will work closely and coincide nicely with what we hope to start at the community farm out there as well. So Apple Ridge Park is getting lots of love.
Did you say that you also discussed this at the park?
Yes, yes, we did. Yep.
Questions about? So are you thinking that they'll be able to do input, like the park commission will be able to do input as far as one playground?
Absolutely, absolutely. Once we get the funds approved, we'll go through a specific design process with Spicer Group and provide input and bring it here as well.
And that's how we used to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There was some question about CBDG, like the park commission.
I wasn't at the last one. I was at two ago.
Yeah, there's a lot, I mean, most of the parks that weren't approved the last 20 years were approved. GMI, with the exception of Wood Lake. But before the sidewalk improvements, we did many. And I think that was all the source of money to do with that now, so they probably are running for a while.
Mm-hmm.
To be excited, so that's great that you have the opportunity to do that. Next action, request formally approve for the staging site at 1600 Davis Street. So whatever this is, we're doing the cleanup and put the equipment, they have cars all the time.
Yes, I think Clerk Rowe actually has been talking directly with the Eagle director in regards to utilizing the township property. I have driven down there on many times, and I think the route that you see on the Google aerial map, where the trucks would use Pinewood, would keep the truck traffic off of the Davis and Glenwood. At the same time, I think that it's a very limited time period from now until mid-May, and the site is to be restored to the condition that you currently see it or close to that. And the insurance has been provided. I drove by there again today, and the amount of dirt that's being removed from that site and then trucks that are involved on that site is just at times just overwhelming in terms of what they're doing in terms of the cleanup. So this staging area will be of assistance for them to get this job completed, and given the township's benefit by having this site cleaned up, I think that the staging area is a very reasonable request, and the insurance is in place, and we're going to notify our insurer as well. So again, I would just request that they use Pinewood as opposed to Davis and Glenwood.
Questions or comments? Next item is the request to approve a letter of agreement between firefighters local and township planning to appoint Steve Waller as temporary fire marshal. Chief?
Good evening again, Madam Supervisor and Honorable Board. We're here today to present to you an agreement we came to with, and our presence here is Zach Rowland. He's the president of Firefighters Local 1830, Ypsilanti Township. And let me digress for a minute and tell you a little bit about your Fire Prevention Bureau, which houses your fire marshal job. About 12 years ago when I came here, we had a fire marshal in place, and we also had a contract, and I think we still have the language in that contract that, in my opinion, restricts him both administratively and operationally from duties, you might say, that include in managing the fire service, as well as you had an ordinance in your code of ordinance under fire prevention. It also restricted him from doing, in this position, conducting any plan reviews. Everything went third party. 6 months after I arrived here, he was on the path of early retirement. So those duties kind of fell in my lap. I consider myself a numbers guy, so a lot of my initiatives that I've had since here, your automatic aid agreement, budgeting, is all based on mining data and moving the numbers around. In this case, we had a monumental task to lay a foundation in the Fire Prevention Bureau and also to amend your code of ordinances, like what you talked about tonight with the Juneteenth. I think back then we were on the 2003 version of the International Fire Code. So all of this, I'm saying, is I set in motion a plan to try to improve these services. I am proud to say by our last fire marshal, Dan Kimball, who retired in December, all of you are aware of him. He's fully credentialed. He's done a fantastic job as a fire marshal. We've had to work numerous letters of agreements in order to get to that place. Unfortunately, we had to do this again in this time with Steve Walgren. Steve Walgren, October, I think it was, of 2020, he came to me and expressed desire to be in this position. We also laid a foundation for that to happen because I knew the person that would ascend to this position needed to have credentials, national standard credentials, to do the job. That was a problem when I came here. There was a deficiency for the fire marshal having those credentials. Steve, as to date, has accomplished the Fire Inspector 1. He's currently working toward his Fire Inspector 2. He has his plan review certifications. He also has, excuse me, his fire investigation, basic and advanced. We laid the foundation for him to attain all of this prior to him testing. The only component left that I wouldn't, well, by the way, he's the only applicant or candidate for this position. So in talking with the union, my only concern was I didn't feel like him having the credentials that I needed to run him. Let me back up. We're a civil service department. So in order to have a civil service test, because that has always been problematic in this role, they could pass the civil service test but not have the credentials to do the job. Of course, Dan had them all. Steve Walgren is right at the door, and I think later this month or either next month he'll test and he should pass the Fire Inspector 2, which currently we moved him to 40 hours, so he's temporarily in that role and he's working with Dan. And it's a smooth transition with all of the ongoing projects, filing warehouse, the Bozo, the Amazon that's coming, and there are several more projects that now he has been exposed to and he's been immersed in, which will make this transition go very smooth. Our agreement, and this letter of agreement, is just to certify him in the position until he gets his certifications, and then I can promote him, officially appoint him to fire marshal. He's a great guy. I think he'll do well in this position like his predecessor Dan. I think he's a credit to not only our organization, but I think he's a credit to the township also. I'd like to thank Zach. All we needed to do was sit down for 10 minutes, and we came to this agreement, and the way it's been paved. The only thing I'm asking tonight is that the board allow Brenda to sign this agreement, and I'm sure he'll be promoted to fire marshal probably within 60 days or less. Any questions?
I do have one, Madam Chair. So that's the question I was going to ask, is how long will he complete the certifications? You just said 60 days, right? Or more?
He has, what we did was, he has unlimited time to do it. Okay. Let me explain this to you, how it works with civil service. When we would take the test, they gave them up to a year to get the certifications. Okay. That's all of them that I mentioned, the Fire Inspector 1 and 2, the fire investigation, and the plan review. I'm thinking he was ready to take the test. Mm-hmm. Zach would probably know. I'm thinking more so than I would. I'm thinking it was this month that he's prepared to take the Fire Inspector 2 test. And upon passing that, then I can appoint him officially.
So is there 2 tests, is 1, and he has to complete 2?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So I guess he's the union president, is that correct? Yes. So I guess they have agreed that he can do that, be hired temporary until he completes his certification.
Right, so the agreement isn't so much that he needs this certification, but the idea of it is to eliminate redundant testing, because he's already attained all the certificates, and he's got one more test that the inspector too. So to then do a civil service exam and retest him on all the certificates that he's gotten in the last 6 months, while he's not competing against anyone for the position, it's just redundant. So we're just trying to also get him in the position immediately so that he can work with Dan and learn from Dan while Dan's still in the building department. That's the goal really, is to get him working with Dan immediately. And then really the civil service exam isn't needed because there's no list being made for the position. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and so it's not real, well, it's a temporary, you're going to be placed temporary, is that?
That's what the letter of agreement says.
The letter agreement, so it might take up to 2 years. And, you know, I wish the brother gets in. I just wanted to check with the union that they have straightened their in out. Also, so let's just say it doesn't happen in 2 years.
Okay, so then
Is there some kind of clause in that agreement?
well, then I would still have to go back through a civil service exam.
Okay, no, what I'm saying is between the township and this gentleman getting that position, let's say it takes 2 years and he doesn't pass it, he's going to be working there, and I hope he does well and get the position. I'm not trying to put an egg on or whatever, but I'm saying if he doesn't get that classification within 2 years, would you make him test again? Why he's,
He'll be qualified by then.
Yeah.
He's really close to being qualified.
okay.
This is complicated also because of civil service, and that's what the chief is saying. We did this before, where we appointed people.
Right, and technically
Okay.
there isn't, this inspector too, he's really going above and beyond. This isn't a state requirement. This is something that, as a department, we like to have, and we like the person in the position. to
Not a
have.
state, it's not a state certification then. It's a civil,
No, this isn't a civil service requirement. Civil service does require you only to have rank to take the test.
got you.
Okay. This is a township imposed standard that they would have fire inspector 1, fire inspector 2, and plan review.
So it's a requirement of the township then?
Correct.
Gotcha.
We did this because we amended, as I mentioned earlier, we amended the ordinance to include some of those specific tasks, plan review,
Okay.
for instance, so that we can do plan reviews in-house. Now, your ordinance says we may do them, but what I inherited they didn't do them. And to kind of further that, I don't like to kind of open up the door in the past, I didn't have people that had those credentials, fire inspector 1 or 2, fire inspector 2. So, but I still had to move them along in the process because that's all I had to work with.
I got you, thank
Okay.
you.
So now I have someone that has exceeded all of those credentials.
Okay, you answered my question, thank you.
Yeah.
No, on the testing, I mean, we were ready to do the civil service testing if necessary. Dates had been set. I had notified the department of the dates have been set. And like they said, Steve was the only one who actually contacted me saying he was interested in even taking the civil service test. So, you know, doing this and allowing him, I mean, I would say, based on what he's done already, I would say he would have this certification within the next 4 weeks.
Yeah. This is a win-win for everyone.
So, and that allows us to cancel the civil service testing that we were going to have to pay for and only run it with just one person, and put him into that position.
Well, I got it, and I thank you. I think you gave me clarification and knowledge, and I thank you.
All right.
I wish him all the best.
Any further questions? No? Okay.
I would just add to that during the follow-up meeting with Mr. Carpenter, I've continued to stress to this board in my letters and to Mr. Carpenter that if we go back to 2014, when the township became a constituent municipality within the AAATA authority, there were a couple of provisions which I think have been totally run roughshod over in this process. And when I say that, I'm not advocating, legal action. I'm just pointing out that we have an agreement in place for a reason. And one of the paragraphs that comes from the agreement in place kind of contemplated this kind of situation arising between the constituent members that make up the AATA. And it says that both the township and the AATA recognize their obligation as public bodies to exist harmoniously for the public good. Now, this sentence here is the one I've been kind of keying in on to no avail. To the extent it is possible, disputes arising out of this agreement, including but not limited to matters concerning expansion, reduction, alteration of service, and the financial implications thereof, are to be resolved through discussions and negotiations by the two bodies. So in other words, this request to go from 0.70 to 2.38 is going to have a tremendous amount of financial implications. It purportedly is going to be for the basis of expansion, alteration of service, etc. So it fits in 100% with what the intent of this paragraph is. My objection is that they've rolled out this millage request without sitting down with the constituent municipality, the township, and having these good faith negotiations. Now, a lot has changed in the world since November, putting aside the COVID. There's a lot of economists that are right now really somewhat white-knuckled about whether or not we could be going into a global recession over the war in Ukraine and Russia, and that right now the impact, nobody knows. Nobody knows how that's going to play out beyond the fact right now there's going to be some significant supply issues in regards to food, groceries, inflation, everything that everybody is fearful of. It seems to be happening almost on a daily basis. So that is also reason enough to sit down and have this conversation, which they are required to do. The thing that's probably most puzzling to me is that they're basing this recommendation to go from 0.70 to 2.38 based upon a so-called survey of 800 people. They initially said 800, which I think when you combine the cities of Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor, Township, it's almost 200,000 people. So when I questioned Mr. Carpenter to send me a copy of the survey questions and the survey results, I did get back an email saying that he misspoke, that actually the survey sample size was not 800, it was actually 600. So I don't know how that is supposed to make me feel any better about your sample when you have 800 2,000 that's now been reduced to 600, 200,000. And if that is the basis for recommending a 2.38 millage increase, I seriously believe that that is a statistical flaw that any number of business schools would take issue with in regards to the credibility of basing that kind of recommendation that's going to have a tremendous impact. I mean, 2.38 mils is not that far removed from what we levy for the fire department. I mean, it's not quite the same. We levy, I think, 3.12, Brenda, for the fire department. The levy for the fire department is the only point is 2.38 is a significant. It's more than recreation millage. It's a very significant millage that's going to be levied on top of people who are already having to deal with paying or servicing this debt because they happen to own a house in the former Will Run School District. So you keep on, if this was basically a football game, somebody might throw a flag for piling on, because right now you're piling on these taxpayers. So we're basically, at some point in time, you're going to reach the point where you're breaking the camel's back. So the only point I'm making, I guess, or one of the points I'm making, is that the 2.38 millage request was not negotiated, was not discussed in a good faith manner, as this agreement requires to be done. They seem to be bent on going forward with this because they can. I'm just thinking that right now it's the board's call to make at some point in time that the board speaks through its resolutions and ordinances, and maybe this is one where a strong worded resolution would be appropriate as to whether or not the board can then collectively have their voices heard, because when we have this meeting on Thursday, it will be, I think, just with the 3 full-time officials, myself, and I think Mr. Carpenter, and the chair of the AATA. It's not really, conducive to having everybody's voices at the table. That, like tonight, you could all weigh in with good questions, but when you were there, it's not exactly the same. And so resolution is one option to consider. I think I did demand, I shouldn't say demand, I did request, I guess I did demand, in the letter to Mr. Carpenter, that we schedule these meetings and negotiate, as I just read to you, is actually mandated by the funding agreement. So it's just, again, the world keeps changing almost daily. Definitely it's changed since November, not for the better in terms of the overall economy, but for what is happening in the township. And this could put a lot of people back into a world of pain if they put another 2.38 mills onto their property tax bill at this point in time. It's not a good time anytime, especially right now.
No, honey.
Like it's not even going into here.
This,
No, they don't hear it.
it's jacked up, is all I know. Bad jack. Yes.
For the three of you, I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said, including the resolution. However, I would go a step further, and I mentioned in an email today. I would let them know that we need to withdraw from that alliance. There was an article read maybe a month ago in the alliance. Ridership is significantly down. Significantly. They admitted that in the meeting. I asked, and they admitted that. Ypsilanti Township still receives AAT services, but they pay for what they want, sort of like an a la carte. And although a resolution is good, they've already indicated they're not listening anyways. So I'm not sure what more force a resolution. However, when I mentioned in the meeting, or brought up the topic that we could withdraw, would that stop your whole millage proposal? And it certainly would. They couldn't go forward without a third entity. And maybe that's the position we talk from to try and get back to a reasonable number, because this simply is not reasonable in any way, shape, or form. And we had 2 meetings, and I thought they were pretty clear. Both Brenda and Heather were very clear, as was Doug, on what we were seeking and needed and wanted. I was just pretty stunned at the last meeting. Stunned to the point where I just almost couldn't say anything. I was so shocked that their disregard and disrespect for our community. They went through a whole presentation and waited till the very last frame of the presentation almost. And actually, I don't think they were going to give it to us right away, but they had to ask, what's the final number? I just think they don't hear us. And I think the only way they will hear us is if we utilize the option that's in that very same contract to withdraw, or at least let them know that's a possibility.
good. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Newman?
I would support that because looking at the correspondence between them and us, like you said, it's like they just ignore us and they're just going to do it anyway. And to think that these other townships can control what happens to our community when we've taken great pains to make sure that our residents are not taxed any more than what they are, and how they're going to just impose their will. If a resolution doesn't go that far, then the idea of the threat of withdrawal or even withdrawing, to me says something, because even if we pay a la carte, it still would not be as much as the millage would be. So I would be in support of that.
So John, I would even add that when they were asked, what are you going to use this extra money for, they couldn't even give a firm answer on that, other than, well, we're going to be growing, so we're going to add more personnel. Tell a resident that you're going to tax them more so they can add more people for salaries.
So we'll see, but I don't know what the city of Ypsilanti, when I spoke with the mayor this morning, she was not aware of the amount or any conversations. I've searched minutes to see if there was conversations, and I can't find it. So it's going to, hopefully, the city of Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor will agree that this is, and like when we went into the regional authority, we actually, it probably was 8 or 9 months of community engagement, going to the city of Ann Arbor, going to the city of Ypsilanti, and all of us working together and then taking it to the community. And this is not happening at all. So I'm just shocked that someone would do it this way. I'm shocked. It's just, but it will do what we have to do. And I think our board's pretty clear that they don't want to increase taxes at this time. That's what we heard. And that's what the minutes reflected, and then they came back with this. So that was one issue. The other issue briefly, and we have 9 minutes, so I wanted to update you on, there's a petition circulating, and Clerk Rowe distributed the information where someone was challenging the master plan, and they didn't know what section of the master plan. And we've heard petitioners in front of Kroger's and some misleading statements, according to our resident. They were in West Willow going door to door, and no one really had no one's ever had a copy of the petition, even though I believe Clerk Rose asked for it. So we have not seen anything. They are outside, they're getting paid, they said $17 an hour. The person that one of the residents spoke with said they're from Texas. And today, there was an incident at the Kroger's where they were approaching people and saying that, let's stop marijuana 5 feet from a residence. And there's nothing in the current ordinance that says that. We don't know what they're referring to, but Amy and Fletcher from the planning department went over there to get clarity on what they were doing. They didn't get a picture of it or a copy of it. And they, under the petition, the first petition was for scholarships for young people. And then they came to the second petition, which was the language for eliminating the marijuana district off of Rawsonville Road. So they had the ordinance there, and they completely X'd out the current location for the marijuana. But what they were talking to people was like, this will put it on the ballot, so we have no marijuana. Right now, you can have it 5 feet from a resident. So it's still very misleading information, and it's the first time someone actually saw underneath the petition what they were referring to. So even though our master plan had extensive community engagement and $160,000 of expenditures, and we had committees and went to neighborhoods, and this is something new that we haven't had occur in the township before. to object to the master plan. They have 30 days to file a petition with the clerk's office, and Heather has determined it's the 27th, I think? 26th of March to do that. And they have to have 6,300, it's 15% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election. And Heather had said that she had received calls from marijuana developers. So it's really confusing about what's going on, but I do know that there's been a few residents that actually signed it and totally regret it because they felt like they were misled. But we can't get the people, the Ann Arbor News, M Live reporter they went to try to locate them as well so they can find out what they're doing. And so right now, it's still a mystery and they're not clear, and we'll see what happens on the 27th, but to see if they have enough petitions and signatures, and then there's a ballot language that has to be approved, and there's a lot of steps to go through. Jason today said that if their petition is only for that section, then the rest of the master plan can be adopted. But I don't know what it means by eliminating that section and opening up to be on E-course and Washington, Michigan Avenue and all of that. So we don't know because they haven't filed the petitions, correct?
Yeah, I've not seen anything either, so.
And I still haven't received a copy, but that's the closest. Today was the closest, and it was because a resident called that was so upset they were out there doing that. And they felt like they were being tricked again. And that's what I keep hearing from the 3 or 4 residents that have contacted me. So I just wanted to has anyone seen it? I haven't seen it. But just be aware that that's going on, and we're not sure who's behind it or what's behind it. What was it called? Citizens for Responsible Government. Yeah. It's vague. Yeah, I wish they would be up front, and that's not the case. So we're going to take a 7-minute break, 4-minute, and go to the bathroom and try to get the mics working.
Oh, my God.
Check my email.
So are you going out and celebrate your birthday?
That's come and gone.
When, yesterday or this morning?
Last week.
Oh, okay, yeah, well,
It's
belated
a
birthday,
day. Yeah.
happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay. 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 Okay, okay. What? Please know there's no problem with you. No problem with him. I'm transparency.